facing one another across the pillar, where the bell hung, still trembling, though it no longer gave off any note. Suddenly they heard a soft noise from the end of the room, which was still undamaged. They turned quick as lightning to see what it was. One of the robed figures, the farthest one of all, the woman whom Diggory thought was beautiful, was rising from its chair. When she stood up, they realized that she was even taller than they had thought. And you could see at once, not only from her crown and robes, from the flash in her eyes and the curve of her lips, that she was a great queen. She looked around the room and saw the damage and saw the children, but she could not guess from her face that what she thought of either, or whether she was surprised. She came forward with long, swift strides. "Who has awakened me? Who has broken the spell?" she asked. "I think it must have been me," said Diggory. "You," said the queen, laying her hand on his shoulder, a white, beautiful hand, but Diggory could feel that it was as strong as steel pincers. But you are only a child, a common child. Anyone can see at a glance that you have no drop of royal or noble blood in your veins. How did such as you dare to enter this house?" "We've come from another world by magic," said Polly, who thought it was high time the queen took some notice of her as well as of Diggory. "Is this true?" said the queen, still looking at Diggory and not giving Polly even a glance. "Yes, it is," he said. The queen put her other hand under his chin and forced it up so that she could see his face better. Diggory tried to stare back, but he soon had to let his eyes drop. There was something about hers that overpowered him. After she had studied him for well over a minute, she let go of his chin and said, "You are no magician. The mark is not on you. You must be only the servant of a magician. It is on another magic's you have traveled here." "It's my Uncle Andrew," said Diggory. At that moment, not in the room itself, but from somewhere very close, there came first a rumbling, then a creaking, then a roar of falling masonry, and the floor shook. "There is great peril here," said the queen. "The whole palace is breaking up. If we are not out of it in a few minutes, we shall be buried in the ruin." She spoke very calmly as she said, and as if she were merely mentioning the time of day. "Come," she added, and held out a hand to each of the children. Polly, who was disliking the queen and feeling rather sulky, would not have let her hand be taken if she could have helped it. But though the queen spoke so calmly, her movements were quick as thought. Before Polly knew what was happening, her left hand had been caught in a hand so much larger and stronger than her own that she could do nothing about it. "This is a terrible woman," thought Polly. "She's strong enough to break my arm with one twist. And now that she's got my left hand, I can't get at my yellow ring. If I tried to stretch across and get my right hand into my left pocket, I might be able to reach it before she asked me what I was doing. Whatever happens, we mustn't let her know about the rings. I do hope Diggory has the sense to keep his mouth shut. I wish I could get a word with him alone." The queen led them along out of the Hall of Images into a long corridor and through a whole maze of halls and stairs and courtyards. Again and again there heard parts of the great big palace collapsing, sometimes quite close to them, and once a huge arch came thundering down only a moment after they had passed. The queen was walking quickly. The children had to try to keep up with her, but she showed no signs of fear. Diggory thought, "She's wonderfully brave and strong. She's what I call a queen. I do hope she's going to tell us the story of this place." She did tell them certain things as they went along. "That is the door to the dungeons," she would say. Or, "That passage leads to the principal torture chambers." Or, "This was the old banqueting hall, where my great-grandfather paid 700 nobles to a feast and killed them all before they had drunk their fill. They had had rebellious thoughts." They came at last into a hall much larger and loftier than any they had yet seen. From its size, and from the great doors at the far end, Diggory thought that now at last they must be coming to the main entrance. In this he was quite right. The doors were dead black, either ebony or some black metal, which is not found in our world. They were fastened with great bars of them moat, most of them too high to reach, and all heavy to lift. He wondered how they would get out. The Queen let go of his hand and raised her arm. She drew herself up to her full height and stood rigid. Then she said something which they couldn't understand, but it sounded horrible, and made an action as if she was throwing something towards the door. And those high and heavy doors trembled for a second, as if they were made of silk, and then crumbled away till there was nothing left of them but a heap of dust on the threshold. Phew, whistled Diggory. Has your master magician oracle power like mine? Asked the Queen, firmly seizing Diggory's hand. But I shall know later. In the meantime, remember what you see. This is what happens to things and to people who stand in my way. Much more light than they had yet seen in the country was pouring in through the now empty door, and when the Queen let them out through it, they were not surprised to find themselves in the open air. The wind that blew in their faces was cold, yet somehow stale. They were looking from a high terrace, and there was a great landscape spread out below them. Low down and near the horizon hung a great red sun, far larger than our own. Diggory felt at once that this was it was older than ours, a sun at the end of its life, weary of looking down upon that world. To the left of the sun and higher up, there was a single star, big and bright, and those were the only two things to be seen in the sky. And on the earth, in every direction, as far as the eye could reach, there spread a vast city, in which there was no living thing to be seen. And all the temples, towers, palaces, pyramids, and bridges cast long, disastrous-looking shadows in the light of that withered sun. Once a great river had flowed through the city, but the water had long since vanished. It was now only a wide ditch of grey dust. Look well on that which no eyes will ever see again, said the Queen. Such was Charn, that great city, the city of the King of Kings, the wonder of the world, perhaps of all worlds. Does your uncle rule any city as great as this boy? No, said Diggory. He was going to explain that Uncle Andrew didn't rule any cities, but the Queen went on. It is silent now, but I have stood here when the whole air was full of the noises of Charn, the trampling of feet, the creaking of wheels, the cracking of the whip, the groaning of slaves, the thunder of chariots, and the sacrificial drums beating in the temples. I have stood here, but that was near the end, when the roar of battle went up from every street, and the river of Charn ran red, all in one moment. One woman blotted it out forever. Who said Diggory? The faint whisper. But he had guessed already the answer. I, said the Queen. I, Jadis, the last Queen, but Queen of the world. The two children stood silent, shivering in the cold wind. It was my sister's fault, said the Queen. She drove me to it. May the curse of all the powers rest upon her forever. At any moment I was ready to make peace, yes, and to spare her life too, if only she would yield me the throne. But she would not. Her pride has destroyed the whole world. Even after the war had begun, there was a solemn promise that neither side would use magic. But when she broke that promise, what else could I do? Fool, as if she did not know that I had more magic than she. She even knew that I had the secret of the deplorable word. Did she think she was always a weakling, that I would not use it? What was it, said Diggory? That was the secret of secrets, said the Queen Jadis. It had long been known to the great kings of our race that there was a word which, if spoken with the proper ceremonies, would destroy all living things except the one who spoke it. But the ancient kings were weak and soft-hearted, and bound themselves and all who came after them with great oaths, never even to seek after the knowledge of the word. But I learned it in secret, in a secret place, and paid a terrible price for it. I did not use it until she forced me to. I fought to overcome her with every other means. I poured out the blood of my armies like water. Beast, muttered Polly. The last battle, said the Queen, raged for 3 days, here in Charn itself. For 3 days I looked down upon it from this very spot. I did not use my power till the last of my soldiers had fallen, and the accursed woman, my sister, at the head of her rebels, was halfway up those great stairs that lead up from the city to the terrace. Then I waited till we were so close we could see one another's faces. She flashed me her horrible, wicked eyes open, and said, "Victory." "Yes," said I, "victory, but not yours." Then I spoke the deplorable word. A moment later, I was the only living thing beneath the sun. But the people gasped, Diggory. "What people, boy?" asked the Queen. "All the ordinary people who've never done you any harm, and the women, and the children, and the animals." "Don't you understand?" said the Queen, still speaking to Diggory. I was the Queen. They were all my people. What else were they for but to do my will? It was rather hard luck on them all the same, said he. I had forgotten that you are only a common boy. How should you understand reasons of state? You must learn, child, that what would be wrong for you, or for any of the common people, is not wrong in a great queen such as I. The weight of the world is on our shoulders. We must be freed from all rules. Ours is a high and lonely destiny. Diggory suddenly remembered that Uncle Andrew had used exactly the same words, but they sounded much grander when Queen Jadis said them. Perhaps because Uncle Andrew was not 7 feet tall and dazzlingly beautiful. "And what did you do then?" said Diggory. "I had already cast strong spells in the hall where the images of my ancestors sat, and the force of those spells was that I should sleep among them, like an image myself, and need neither food nor fire, though it were 1,000 years, till one came and struck the bell and woke me." "Well, was it the deplorable word that made the sun like that?" asked Diggory. "Like what?" said Jadis. "So big, so red, and so cold." "It has always been so," said Jadis, "at least for hundreds of thousands of years. Have you a different sort of sun in your world?" "Yes, it's smaller and yellower, and it gives a good deal more heat." The Queen gave a long, drawn-out "ah," and Diggory saw in her face that same hungry and greedy look which he had lately seen on Uncle Andrew's. "So," she said, "yours is a younger world." She paused for a moment to look once more at the deserted city, as if she was sorry for all the evil she had done. She certainly didn't show it, and then said, "Now, let us be going. It is cold here, at the end of all the ages." "Going where?" asked both the children. "Where?" replied Jadis in surprise. "To your world, of course." had seen quite as much of her as he wanted. Certainly she was not at all the sort of person one would like to take home, and if they did like, they didn't know how they could. What they wanted was to get away themselves. But Polly couldn't get it in a ring, and of course Diggory couldn't go without her. Diggory got very red in the face and stammered, "Oh, our world, I didn't know you wanted to go there." "What else were you sent here for, if not to fetch me?" said Jadis. "I'm sure you wouldn't like our world at all, said Diggory. "It's not her sort of place, is it, Polly? It's very dull, not worth seeing, really." "It will soon be worth seeing when I roll it," answered the Queen. "Oh, but you can't," said Diggory. "It's not like that. They wouldn't let you, you know." The Queen gave it a contemptuous smile. "Many great kings," she said, "thought they could stand against the house of Charn. But they are all fell, and their names are forgotten. Foolish boy, do you think that I, with my beauty and my magic, will not have your world at my feet before a year has passed? Prepare your incantations and take me there at once." "This is perfectly frightful," said Diggory to Polly. "Perhaps you fear for this uncle of yours," said Jadis. "But if he honors me duly, he shall keep his life and his throne. But I am not coming to fight against him. He must be a very great magician if he has found how to send you here. Is he the king of your whole world, or only part of it?" "He isn't king of anywhere," said Diggory. "You are lying," said the Queen. "Does not magic always go with the royal blood? Who ever heard of common people being magicians? I can see the truth whether you speak it or not. Your uncle is the great king and the great enchanter of your world. And by his art he has seen the shadow of my face in some magic mirror or some enchanted pool, and for the love of my beauty he has made a potent spell which shook your world to its foundations and sent you across the vast gulf between world and world to ask my favor and to bring me to him. Answer me, is this not how it was?" "Well, not exactly," said Dick. "Not exactly," shouted Polly. "Why, it's absolute bosh from beginning to end." "Minions!" cried the Queen, turning in rage upon Polly and seizing her hair at the very top of her head, where it hurts most. But in so doing, she had let go of both of the children's hands. "Now," shouted Diggory, and quick, shouted Polly. They plunged their left hands into their pockets. They did not even need to put the rings on. The moment they touched them, the whole of that dreary world vanished from their eyes. They were rushing upward, and a warm, green light was growing over their head. And there ends Chapter 5 of Magician's Nephew. Please